Hello. Today, I'm going to talk about the Generation 1 of OU and why I love using Kingler in my games. First things first, though, you might not know what I mean by Gen 1 OU. I'll explain real quick. Gen 1 OU is a tier of competitive Pokemon. Here's a picture of all the tiers. OU stands for overused, UU stands for underused, RU is rarely used, and so on. Pokemon get placed in tiers by being used in battle over others. This is because the general consensus in the Pokemon community is that if a Pokemon is better, it will be used more. From there, Pokemon can be sorted into its tier where it's as viable as it can be. So, the overused Pokemon are the most used Pokemon in the first generation Pokemon that are not banned to the Ubers tier. Now that I've explained what Generation 1 OU is, I will explain why I personally really like it. Something that I love in life is routine. I love predictability. I love knowing what's going to happen. I'm not particularly a fan of surprise. So, Generation 1 OU is fit for someone like me. There are a total of 13 Pokemon that are considered OU in Generation 1. You are allowed to use Pokemon from lower tiers, so you're not going to always only see those, but these are sort of the main ones that you're going to see. Sort of what you should expect. Even with a total of 13 Pokemon in this tier, anybody who's played Generation 1 OU, or at least knows about Generation 1 OU, will know about the Big Three. Big Three is Tauros, Chansey, and Snorlax. These three Pokemon are considered to be so good that they're almost mandatory for any seriously competitive team. Tauros is one of the best offensive Pokemon in the game and can turn the tide of any battle just with random crits or, just having a really good attack stat. Chansey is an amazing special wall who has access to freeze, paralysis, and recovery, almost unkillable in certain situations. Snorlax is sort of a best of both worlds Pokemon, that it's pretty bulky, and it's capable of dealing good damage in a multitude of sets. So this makes me really like it even more, because it makes it a lot more simple. You now essentially only have to choose between 3 Pokemon. Now, of course, there are some times where I wish I had more options, but usually I don't really find much of an issue. You might be wondering why team building is so limited. The simple answer is that Generation 1 is really bad with movesets and giving Pokemon the things they need to succeed. This results in only a certain amount of Pokemon being able to overcome these issues and leaving a rather limited metagame. Even lead Pokemon are actually pretty simple, since it usually just ends in both Pokemon using Thunder Wave to get a paralysis off. So by now I'm sure you get the point. It's predictable, it's simple, but with so much staying the same, couldn't it get boring after a bit? Most definitely. Now, I'm not saying every single game is the same. Even with 3 Pokemon on almost every team, there are 3 other Pokemon who most certainly could shake things up. However, as stated earlier, Gen 1 movesets really do leave much to be desired. Pokemon can usually only run 1 to 2 sets, so you will know what you're facing pretty quickly. I found myself getting bored of Gen 1, however, I eventually decided that maybe using a Pokemon from the limited OU tier was not the answer. Maybe, just maybe, we had to go deeper into the lower tiers to get some excitement in our life. Enter Kingler. Now, before I state why I love Kingler, I'm going to state why you should not use it. I know that every single thing after this point will contradict what I say here, but I need you to know that no matter how much I gush over this Pokemon, I do not recommend you use him in your team. Kingler is pretty slow compared to OU Pokemon, and mostly relies on a simple gimmick of Swords Dance and Hyper Beam. If Kingler gets paralyzed, he's pretty much useless because he'll miss turns, and he's as stated earlier, he's slow, so he's going to get outsped a lot. If your opponent has a healthy Starmie that does not have paralysis or something like that, and it has a Thunderbolt, or you encounter a Zapdos, which most definitely has some sort of electric move, you're just kind of done. You will not outspeed them, and they will most certainly kill you. There is a reason why the crab is not in OU. Now, with all of this out of the way, I can tell you I don't care about any of this, because I love Kingler for that one thing it can do, where it just uses a Swords Dance, and then it uses Hyper Beam. I love seeing my +2 Kingler kill Chansey, Starmie, Alakazam, and even more Pokemon if they have been chipped. You might think Gengar or Rhydon would wall it, Gengar being immune to Hyper Beam and Rhydon resisting it, but you would be wrong. With the amazing Crab Hammer, he can now one-hit kill Rhydon, three-hit kill Gengar, and can brute force its way past Reflect Snorlax. Now, unfortunately, you cannot beat Zapdos, but that's why you keep it for the late game. I personally treat Kingler like a second Tauros. Now, of course, Tauros is a much better Pokemon in every single way, but the same principle applies. You keep it for the late game when your opponent is chipped and statused, and then you watch it wreak havoc. Personally, I've had the most fun ever playing Gen 1 OU with experimenting with this team. Changing sets and Pokemon to help support it better feels really enjoyable to me. And when I win because of Kingler, it gives me a feeling of satisfaction like no other. So there you go, my reasons for loving Generation 1 Pokemon and loving Kingler. I think that maybe, if you find yourself in a similar situation like me, where Pokemon Competitive just doesn't feel the same, take a chance on a lower tier and more niche Pokemon. Maybe you'll find it'll bring back that passion that once was lost. I know this was a bit of a short video, but I didn't actually have that much to say. I am not a Generation 1 OU expert, so I obviously didn't think going in depth would be a good idea, since I didn't want to say anything wrong. And there's not much to the reason I love Kingler. It just kills a lot of things. It's a very simple reason, but it's my reason. So, at the end of the day, that's all I have for you today. See you later, everybody.